Tonight, Senate seals fate of presidential aide Loretta Onochies as INEC National Commissioner as the lawmakers reject her nomination. The President meets with members of the National Assembly after receiving report of the House National Security Summit following approval of recommendations by lawmakers. One of the students kidnapped from the Bethel Baptist Secondary School, Kaduna, rescued as Emir of Kajuru is rushed to hospital due to trauma from his abduction. And death toll rises in South Africa. Protests several townships in Johannesburg gripped with looting and destruction of property. Plus business sports news from Abuja and later international news from our studio in London.
On business news tonight, federal government picks 4 asset managers for the newly established $37 billion infrastructure company of Nigeria Limited.
On sports news tonight, Roger Federer becomes the latest top tennis player to pull out of the Tokyo Olympic Games scheduled to begin on July the 23rd.
And from Abuja, INEC vows to deepen use of technology in elections as over 500,000 Nigerians complete the online pre-registration, over 400,000 of them new registrants.
We begin in the National Assembly, where the Senate has again rejected the nomination of Mrs. Loretta Onochies as National Commissioner representing Delta State in the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. The upper chamber is also stepping down the confirmation of Professor Sani Adam as INEC Commissioner for the North Central. The decision to reject Mrs. Onochies comes after considering a report from its committee on INEC, which stated that it is unable to recommend to Mrs. Loretta Onochies for confirmation because her nomination contravenes the federal character principle. Our correspondent Linda Kibe reports.
Opposition was swift and intense from the moment President Buhari nominated his aide, Mrs. Loretta Onochies, for the position of INEC National Commissioner and asked the National Assembly to confirm her. There were several reasons for the opposition to her nomination, with the strongest being her membership of the ruling All Progressives Congress (APC), an allegation Mrs. Onochies denied during her screening by the Senate Committee on INEC.
Since 2019, when President Muhammadu Buhari won his second term, I have removed myself from anything political.
The committee submits its report on the screening exercise to the Senate during Tuesday's legislative proceedings.
In the case of Ms. Loretta Onochies, the 8th Senate passed based on the recommendation of its INEC committee, confirmed Barrister May Ubamuche Mbu from Delta State as the National Commissioner of INEC, who is still serving at present. Therefore, confirming the nomination of Mrs. Loretta Onochies from the same Delta State will be a violation of federal character principles.
The committee also steps down the confirmation of Professor Sani Adams, representing the North Central, for further investigation because of the petitions against him. The Senate adopts the recommendations of the committee.
Will the Senate approve the nomination of Loretta Onochies as a commissioner representing Delta State in the Independent National Electoral Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The nays have it.
Lawmakers react to the Senate's decision.
We are elected representatives of the people, and what people feel concerned about should also give us a concern. But I'm happy that the ground for our decision was made very clear. And it's not about Mrs. Loretta Onochies, it's about setting a standard, for ourselves as a country.
But if you want confidence reposed in INEC, we need to give them the enablement for Nigerians to bestow that confidence in them. So I think the Senate has done the proper thing, and they've acted with public opinion.
Members of civil rights organizations and the opposition PDP will be signed in relief at the Senate's rejection of a nomination of Mrs. Loretta Onochies as a National Commissioner for INEC, as they also await President Buhari's response to her rejection. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the People's Democratic Party, PDP, has reacted to the Senate's rejection of President Muhammadu Buhari's nomination of Loretta Onochies as a National Commissioner in the Independent National Electoral Commission. According to the PDP, the move by the Senate is the triumph of the Nigerian people over what it calls the barefaced attempt by the APC to corrupt and hijack the Commission ahead of the 2023 elections. The party's National Publicity Secretary says the move by the Senate has salvaged INEC and saved the Nigerian electoral process from a very serious crisis.
When I heard that the nomination of Loretta Onochies was rejected by the Senate, the first thought process that came through my mind was that this is a triumph of the will of Nigerians and a victory for our democracy. Because the nomination of, or let me call it the renomination of Onochies for screening and confirmation, shows a deliberate ploy to subvert the electoral process ahead of the 2023 election. And that was very worrisome to the People's Democratic Party and also to majority of Nigerians. The issue of whether Senate is a rubber stamp or not will not be assessed on the basis of what happened today. It's just a one-off situation. So we cannot, from this rejection of Loretta Onochies, declare that, oh, the Senate has ceased to be a rubber stamp Senate. There are other issues. The Senate must rise to the demands of Nigerians and address that section of the Electoral Act and ensure that moving from here, both our votes and the collation must be done electronically.
Now, the journey to the rejection of Mrs. Loretta Onochies' nomination did not just start today. In fact, the issue has been a topic of national debate since the nomination was announced. It also generated reactions from civil society groups and members of the public. Let's tell you how it all started.
An outcry on the streets, in this room. All they are saying is
the Senate reject the nomination of Mrs. Loretta Onochies.
Since the letter of President Buhari's nomination of Ms. Loretta Onochies became public, politicians and civil society groups have shown dissatisfaction. At last, when Ms. Onochies appeared for screening, it was question galore.
Are you a carry member of any political party? You swore to an oath, an affidavit.
And she gave her responses.
Since 2019, I have not had anything to do with any political organization in this country.
Disagreements ensued amongst lawmakers.
Madam Onochies be placed on oath to repeat what she said as to whether or not she's a member of a political party.
He will only put somebody on oath in a committee if we're having if there was an investigation. We're not investigating. This is not an investigative hearing.
A former INEC chairman, Professor Ataru Jega, gave an advice to the president on Ms. Onochies' nomination.
The president can also just withdraw that nomination. After all, there are so many hundreds, I will say, of women with credibility, with capacity, with competence in both Delta and Cross River states. So why bring somebody that can generate controversy?
After all said, Ms. Onochies' nomination was rejected.
The nays have it.
And the basis for the rejection is perhaps not what many expected. Shonwoki Maloye, Channels Television News.
Well, Mr. Ezenwa Nwagoro is the Executive Director, Partners for Electoral Reforms. He joins us on the News at 10 from our Abuja studio. Thank you for joining us on the News at 10 tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Now, coming from the civil society organization angle, how do you receive the news of the Senate's decision on the nomination of Loretta Onochies?
Well, for us, it's a happy throwback for forces that wanted to subvert the Constitution in terms of willingly and willfully wanting to dent irreparably the image Independent National Electoral Commission by foisting on it a very divisive person like Mrs. Onochies. And that for us is first and foremost saying we will continue to put the pressure on the duty bearers to do what they have to do, especially when they themselves are the ones who have sworn to uphold the Constitution. We should be able to put the pressure on them to continue to ensure that they uphold the Constitution they have sworn, they swore an oath to defend. So it's exciting for us, but it is also a call to more work. We've seen a situation in which those who did this have constantly renominated people who have been rejected by the Senate. So it's not Uhuru yet. It calls for vigilance and a lot more attention to ensure that, first and foremost, that the integrity of our electoral process is defended with everything that we have.
Let's look at the reasons given by the Senate, one of which is that there is a serving INEC commissioner representing Delta State, but that wasn't why it was kicked against by civil society organizations, some of your members. Rather, it was the reason of her membership of the APC, which she denies being a member since 2019. Are you happy with that reason given by the Senate rejecting the nomination?
Well, there are a plethora of reasons that that we brought forward for her, asking for her rejection. And incidentally, the lie was first and foremost that Mrs. May Agbamuche Mbu was from Cross River. That was what they wanted to use to hoodwink the Senate until the Senate report for the clearance of Mrs. Mbu resurfaced, and we put that in the public domain, and it became clear that Mrs. Mbu actually was not representing Cross River in the Senate, but was representing Delta State. So that's just one reason. But in terms of her partisanship, we've made the point that it is clear even to the blind and audible to the deaf that Mrs. Loretta Onochies' affiliation to the APC is not in doubt. We find a constitutional challenge in that, and that is the loophole that they wanted to see whether they can take to say that, oh, once you resign. But we have to be clear about what is the mischief that we needed to. It's about it is about integrity. It's about the idea of that brand. If you dent the INEC brand irreparably in the way her nomination would have done, then it would have been challenging, especially when she's a personal aide to a serving president. So that and a plethora of other reasons. She's also a dual citizen. And people say, oh, it doesn't matter, but we think that her allegiance even to Nigeria will be false. So we adduce, there are several reasons that we adduce, but whatever it is that Senate hinged on to reject the nomination is gladdening to their hearts.
In 30 seconds, what are some of the qualities that you think a national commissioner, doesn't matter where they're coming from, should have, especially for INEC?
The Constitution is very clear about what somebody should have. First, you have to be non-partisan. You have to be somebody of unquestionable integrity. I hear people say, oh, those are heavenly, lofty ideals. But if they are unattainable, it will not be in the Constitution. So clearly, it's about non-partisanship. It's about person of unquestionable character. It's about competence. It's about capacity. It's about the ability to be insulated from political affiliations, and that clearly you can find many Nigerians who qualify on that count. So we shouldn't burden INEC with people who will raise controversies in a way that will make them battle, perception challenges rather than facing the work that they should be doing.
Executive Director, Partners for Electoral Reforms, Mr. Ezenwa, thank you so much for joining us on the News at 10.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
In part two, after the break, the President meets with members of the National Assembly after receiving report of the National Security Summit organized by the House of Representatives. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the News at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Senate seals fate of presidential aide Loretta Onochies as INEC National Commissioner as lawmakers reject her nomination. The president meets with members of the National Assembly after receiving report of the House National Security Summit following approval of recommendations by lawmakers. One of the students kidnapped from the Bethel Baptist Secondary School, Kaduna, rescued as Emir of Kajuru is rushed to hospital due to trauma from his abduction. And death toll rises in South Africa protests several townships in Johannesburg gripped with looting and destruction of property. The president has hosted lawmakers from both chambers of the National Assembly to a dinner at the State House today, and he says his administration is ready to use everything within its powers to end insecurity in the country and bring perpetrators of criminal activities to book. According to him, insecurity manifesting as insurgencies, banditry, kidnapping and urban crime of all sorts is the single most difficult challenge the country is facing today. He also expressed concern that insecurity had inhibited his government's ability to build infrastructure, provide the much-needed social services to the people, and to attract investments that drive innovation, creative industries, and provide jobs and create wealth. President Buhari adds that we cannot allow ourselves to be distracted from this objective or waver in our commitment, as he explains that he is confident that together we will triumph in our present efforts. The National Assembly had on April the 27th, 2021, reached a resolution for the leadership of the upper chamber to schedule a meeting with the president to enable lawmakers meet with him to discuss the issue of insecurity in the country. And President Muhammadu Buhari today, while receiving the report of the National Security Summit held on May the 26th by the House of Representatives from the Speaker, Femi Gbajabiamila. The President says despite the many challenges that could have torn the country apart, Nigeria is still lucky to remain unified. President Buhari commended the 9th National Assembly for its cooperation with the executive, noting that he tried very hard to get the 8th Assembly to do same for the sake of the country, but he didn't succeed. After the meeting, the Speaker of the House told State House correspondents that the summit became imperative after lawmakers were bombarded daily by their constituents on the security challenges facing the country, and motions after motions were moved by lawmakers. Now, some of the recommendations of the committee include giving immediate consideration to the use of private defense contractors to combat insurgency and terrorism, deployment of early warning systems including CCTV along major highways, public places and borders, and the need for the President to issue an executive order to compel security agencies to use civilians to perform most back office and non-tactical duties to free up thousands of security personnel for frontline duties.
As we said from day one, we will bring the report to Mr. President for action on the recommendations. And he has graciously accepted, which he did even before the summit. And we are hopeful and believe that many of the recommendations, both the legislative and the executive, once implemented, will go a long way to resolving some of the issues, if not all, some of the issues that pervade our society in terms of security. We felt that it was time that we thought outside the box, that we begin to look at different ways as opposed to the traditional ways. And that's exactly what we did. At the summit, we invited experts, we invited all stakeholders, traditional rulers, just name it, deep thinkers, scholars, security experts, and it is the thoughts, particularly those that are not necessarily conventional, that we put together. And we believe that reading the reports, they will be implemented. We believe that they will be implemented. There are several recommendations we've agreed to establish, not commissions, zonal commissions in all the zones, like the Northeast Development Commission. Now we will have the Southwest, we will have the South-South, we will have the Southeast, we will have the Northwest, and that it goes a long way in resolving issues, regional and zonal issues.
And staying with the House of Representatives, the controversial criminal code bill allegedly seeking to jail protesters has been withdrawn from the House of Representatives. The sponsor of the bill, Mr. Chinedu Martins, in a letter to the House indicates that his reason for withdrawing the bill was due to wrong public perception of the bill. He, however, insists that nowhere in the bill was it intended to jail protesters. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives is asking the police to ensure that Ms. Chidinma Ojukwu, the alleged killer of Mr. Osifo Ataga, does not die in police custody. Our correspondent Terry Kumi reports.
Lawmakers in the Green Chamber settled down to the first plenary session of the week. A matter of urgent public importance is raised by Representative Tolulokpe Shadipe on the compliance of the police force with the laws and proper investigation into the death of late Mr. Osifo Ataga.
Call on the Inspector General of Police to call all police personnel to order and ensure that there is no repeat of this type of violation of human rights and media access to arrested persons in future, and therefore avoid compromising the case in the court of law. This is to ensure future cases are not treated in the same manner. Also ensure that Ms. Ojukwu, the accused, does not die in custody or commit suicide while awaiting trial, as in some past cases.
Her motion follows a recent interview granted by the suspect, Chidinma Ojukwu. In reaction to the public outcry to the Criminal Code Amendment Bill, which was perceived to be aimed at jailing protesters, the Speaker of the House reacts to the withdrawal of the bill by the sponsor.
Even after Honorable Martins made a clarification on the floor of this House, the same paper that published the misleading report did not deem it fit to write the same way they wrote and apologize and correct that impression that the report was not as, or the bill was not as reported. That would have been a very simple thing to do to clarify the issue. But having said that, the bill is hereby withdrawn.
The House had come under fire after a media report suggested that the bill sought to jail protesters under the guise of unlawful assembly. Meanwhile, as far as natural resources go, the House is asking the federal government to harness a large deposit of clay in Akwa Ibom State.
Aware that the large deposit of China's clay lying waste in Ukbom, Edeminyang, Ekparakwa clan, Orogonam local government area of Akwa Ibom State, which is left at the mercy of the inhabitants of the community who use it indiscriminately.
Lawmakers in the lower chamber then reject the plan by the federal government to arm personnel of the Federal Fire Service. The House, in rejecting the proposal, is concerned that the Federal Fire Service is a civil outfit and not a security agency. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
The Senate has passed the National Electoral Offences Commission bill, which, if assented to by President Buhari, will be charged with investigating electoral offences and prosecuting electoral offenders. The bill, which came up for third reading during Tuesday's plenary session, will ensure that when established, the National Electoral Offences Commission shall have the power to appoint and maintain investigators, prosecutors and experts to prosecute electoral offenders. The chairman of the Committee on INEC, Senator Kabiru Gaya, says the creation of the commission is critical because INEC clearly lacks the needed human capacity to prosecute electoral offences committed across Nigeria's 119,973 polling units. Meanwhile, the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, says the commission will spare no efforts in deepening the use of technology in elections in order to ensure transparency and credibility in the electoral system. The INEC chairman stated this at a meeting to discuss feedbacks from the ongoing continuous voters registration with national commissioners in Abuja.
As at 7 a.m. yesterday, Monday 12th July 2021, exactly 2 weeks since the exercise began, a total of 542,576 Nigerians have completed the online pre-registration. Out of this figure, 456,909 are fresh registrants, while 85,667 have applied for voter transfer, replacement of the PVCs, update of voter information, etc. I wish to acknowledge the overwhelming support of Nigerians to the CBI exercise so far. I would like to reassure Nigerians that the Commission will continue to spare no effort in deepening the use of technology to ensure electoral transparency and credibility. The voters' register is at the heart of any credible election.
And to security matters, where one of the kidnapped students of Bethel Baptist Secondary School in Shukun local government area of Kaduna State has been rescued. The student, Abraham Ania, was rescued by security operatives along with 2 other kidnapped victims who were abducted by bandits some days ago along Kaduna-Kachia Road. Police authorities say their operatives, alongside men of the civilian JTF on routine patrol, rescued the 3 kidnapped victims while they were roaming inside the forest, extremely exhausted and weak at Shohongaya village in Shukun local government area today. Meanwhile, the released Emir of Kajuru, Alhaji Hassan Adamu, who was released yesterday by his abductors, is currently undergoing medical checkup. The 85-year-old monarch was abducted by bandits in his palace on Sunday morning, alongside 13 members of his family who are still in captivity. In the meantime, the Kaduna State Governor, Nasser El-Rufai, says is asking the federal government to launch simultaneous operations across all the 7 states of the Northwest and Niger states as part of measures to contain activities of bandits who have made life unbearable for the residents of the zone. The governor also says Kaduna State is already considering an unconventional approach to tackle the security problems bedeviling the state, since there are no much boots on the ground to be deployed to most of the ungoverned spaces that have become vulnerable to attacks. He made the suggestions during the presentation of the 2021 second quarter Kaduna State Security Report, where it was reported that a total of 222 people were killed by bandits between April to June 2021.
The data on security incidents in the state during the second quarter of 2021 reflects the real agony of our citizens and communities, their pains and losses, and the fears and anxiety that have created considerable distress. The report also outlines what the Kaduna State government and the security agencies are doing to contain the situation and provide relief to our communities. As governor of this state, it is a matter of profound regret for me that our considerable investments in security are yet to manifest in the defeat or at least the considerable degradation of the criminals that menace our people. We have consistently supported the federal security agencies deployed to our state with logistics, resources and equipment. Apart from these recurrent expenses, the state government has undertaken significant capital expenditure to provide facilities that can multiply the capacity of security agencies to deter crime and conduct effective investigations of those that do occur.
Well, the news at 10 returns. Imo government seals former governor of Rochas Foundation. Plus, federal government picks 4 asset managers for the newly established $37 billion infrastructure company of Nigeria Limited. That's on Business News. Do join us again. Welcome back. A task force set up by the Imo State government to implement the recommendation on the white paper report by the Judicial Commission of Inquiry on recovery of lands and other related matters has sealed off the Rochas Foundation College in Owerri, belonging to the former governor of the state. The state government says the white paper report recommended that the state government recover the property, which according to the master plan was owned by the Imo State Broadcasting Corporation, serving as the staff quarters, but the staff were forcefully ejected and the place illegally acquired by former Governor Rochas Foundation College to build his Rochas Foundation College. Meanwhile, former Governor Rochas has described the action of the state government as a political vendetta, urging Governor Uzodinma to face governance and stop any vendetta mission against perceived opposition. Senator Okorocha's spokesperson said in a statement that the true position is that some part of the land was reallocated legally to the Rochas Foundation by the Ministry of Land, which followed due process, and presently over 4,000 children from Imo State are enjoying free education in the school. Meanwhile, the National Working Committee of the All Progressives Congress has disowned a letter announcing the suspension of Senator Rochas Okorocha from the party. The APC said in a statement that the purported letter signed in the name of May Malabuni and John Panwedoe-Dehe, National Chairman and Secretary of APC Caretaker Committee, did not come from the ruling party. The statement says fifth columnists and forgers have obviously taken advantage of the unfortunate and recent leaks of our official correspondences with the Independent National Electoral Commission to copy and paste forged signatures of the party's leaders on equally fake letters. The statement adds that the letter is a figment of the imagination of fifth columnists and urged members to ignore it. Well, let's go over to Abuja, where Gloria Mezuke has some more stories. Hello, Gloria.
Hello, Millicent. Good to see you. The federal government has announced the end of the first phase of the country's COVID-19 vaccination owing to vaccine inadequacy amidst fears of a third wave and emergence of the deadly Delta variant, which has been reported in the country. The Executive Director of the National Primary Health Care Development Agency, Dr. Faisal Shoaib, told journalists during the weekly vaccination update in Abuja that the country has almost utilized the 4,024,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccine it received from the COVAX facility.
Officials of the National Primary Health Care Development Agency, the World Health Organization and UNICEF are giving journalists updates on Nigeria's COVID vaccination exercise, the Delta variant and the fear of a third wave.
Continue all of those measures.
After 4 months of vaccine rollout in Nigeria, the country says it has administered 98% of the 4,020,000 doses of AstraZeneca it received from the COVAX facility in March this year. But the country is now ending its first vaccination phase, owing to vaccine inadequacy amidst the emergence of the deadly Delta variant and fear of a third wave.
The country has officially ended the first phase of its strategic COVID-19 vaccination plan and is now preparing to commence the second phase in the next few weeks. A lot of Nigerians came forward despite all of the negative conspiracy theories and accepted the vaccines. This is why we're able to ramp up and finish the vaccines, and we did not have any vaccines expire.
Nigeria has relatively kept COVID-19 infection and fatality rates low since the outbreak of the virus in the country last year. So far, over 1 million cases have been reported, leading to over 2,000 fatalities. But the emergence of the Delta variant in the country and the resurgence of cases across Africa is now another source of concern.
We must be mindful of discontinuing public health and social measures. Leaving them too early could see us losing some of the gain that the vaccine have enabled us to make.
The pandemic is still here, and we must take measures to ensure that we prevent its further expansion around the country, but also we take the measures to ensure that the next phase of the vaccination campaign is equally successful.
COVID-19 vaccination is currently the main pharmaceutical intervention against the pandemic globally, which is why many want the Nigerian government to do all it can to acquire these life-saving preparations against the virus.
The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, says Nigeria loses billions of dollars annually to piracy, sea robbery, and other forms of criminality. He stated this during the commissioning of Falcon Eye project in Abuja by the Nigerian Navy. The project is aimed at boosting security of the nation's maritime environment and combating oil theft. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, reports.
Nigeria's maritime domain has been under threat, and the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, is at the naval headquarters to commission the Falcon Eye project, a technology meant to enhance surveillance of the country's coastline. The Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Awal Gambo, gives details of how the Falcon Eye system operates.
The project includes the deployment of 5 over-the-horizon radars to cover the entire nation's coastline and up to 200 nautical miles, that is 370.4 kilometers seawards.
Undoubtedly, the Falcon Eye project will add tremendous value to the Nigerian Navy's maritime domain awareness capability and ultimately enhance Nigeria's national security.
In May 2021, the Nigerian Navy says it seized oil vessels worth at least 3 billion naira and destroyed at least 95 illegal refineries from the beginning of the year. The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, says such crimes are threatening the mainstay of Nigeria's economy.
It's estimated that Nigeria loses several billions of dollars annually to various forms of criminality, particularly piracy and sea robbery. So on account of the escalated risks in some of our maritime areas, insurance premiums for commercial vessels coming to our waters have risen sharply, making maritime trade an unattractive proposition for commercial traders.
The Vice President commissions the Falcon Eye project, which has interconnected computer systems that receive signals from various areas of Nigeria's coastline and the Gulf of Guinea. The falcon is a bird of prey described as a consummate hunter of the avian world, able to spot, chase and kill its prey quietly and efficiently. And it's with that description in mind that the Nigerian Navy is optimistic that the Falcon Eye project will help reduce the crime in the maritime environment in Nigeria. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Car enthusiasts have been given more choices to stir up their interest with the introduction of the latest model of Ford Explorer. The new entrant was the center of attraction at the 2021 Lagos Motor Fair. According to the General Manager, Marketing and Corporate Communications of Koscharis Group, Mr. Abiona Babarinde, Koscharis' participation at the Auto Fair is in a bid to ensure customers get the opportunity to experience the best value for their money.
Okay, that means we are not ready to have this.
Before a crowd of industry players, Koscharis Motors unveils the peak of the park, the all-new 2021 Ford Explorer.
2021 edition, that's the Ford Explorer that is just being unveiled into the Nigerian market.
The Director General of the National Automotive Design and Development Council, Jelani Aliyu, does the honors. He tests drive this latest generation of the Ford SUV. Quite a bit of work might have been done to upgrade the Explorer as a benchmark of Ford SUVs.
The technology of Ford is the real rotary die model. That's what this vehicle has. In the design of this new latest Explorer has gone down to what the capacity of this vehicle to 2.3-liter engine.
Compared to the previous generations, the 2021 Ford Explorer offers a more sophisticated interior spacing, up to 9 available power points, a series of driver assist technology, among others.
Representing Ford has always been very exciting because this is a brand that has been embraced positively by Nigerians. And again, this is a brand that is very iconic in its own presence and its own beauty. aesthetics, and the technology.
In addition, Charis Motors, through its finance scheme packages, have made available ease of payment for the purchase of Ford Explorer and any other variant.
Walking into any Charis showroom, outlets, pan-Nigeria, ask for the finance scheme partnership. You pay just minimum of 10% of any of the models you want from Charis. You are good as being an owner of any of the Ford brand. Apart from selling these, putting these brands in your hand, we also give you that peace of mind. And that peace of mind is your after sales, which comes from the professional certified Ford technicians that have been trained over the years, that Charis have invested in. And of course, the tools to do this, and of course, the original parts.
Charis Motors has represented the Ford brands for over 15 years, with Ford dedicated sales showrooms, parts and after-sales workshops across Nigeria.
Well, that's it from the nation's capital. It's over now to Anne Wanwudu in Lagos for business news.
Thanks a lot. Well, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, has approved the appointment of 4 asset managers to manage Nigeria's newly established infrastructure company of Nigeria Limited, Infraco. They include Netherlands-based Sanlam Infraworks, African infrastructure investment managers based in South Africa, Chapel Delham and Triple Consortium, comprising Africa Plus Partners, ARC Asset Management, and Nigerian Investment Bank, AfriInvest West Africa. Now, this completes a process that started in March this year after the federal government hired KPMG to act as transaction advisor for the company. Meanwhile, the governor of the Nigeria's central bank, Godwin Emefiele, has said that a virtual event today that the Infrastructure Corporation is expected to begin full operation within the third quarter of this year. Meanwhile, the federal government will on Thursday this week flag off the construction of $1.2 billion Kaduna-Kano standard gauge rail line, and that's part of its effort to link the country through rail transportation. According to a statement from the Federal Ministry of Transportation, it says the groundbreaking ceremony for the event will take place at the Zawiki, Dawaki local government areas of Kano at 10 a.m. The 248-kilometer railway project is expected to further improve Nigeria's transport infrastructure and enhance economic growth by linking the country through rail network. The Nigerian Exchange today has held a physical gong closing ceremony since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic in the country last year, and this following the listing of shares of Guarantee Trust Holding Company PLC on the floor of the exchange. The event also featured the reveal of the company's new brand identity to capital market stakeholders and members of the general public. Speaking at the event, the Group Chief Executive Officer of GTCO PLC, Mr. Segun Agbaje, thanked the Nigerian Stock Exchange for its unwavering support and listing of the company following its transformation from just a Tier 1 lender to becoming a holding company. It is the third listed financial institution on the Nigerian Stock Exchange to transform into a holding company after FBN and Stanbic IBTC Holdings. And talking about the Nigerian stock market, it ended the mixed sentiment today as the all-share index traded flat, while the total volume of trades increased by 5.4 against the previous session. Eni John Mekwa has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, for the first time since the pandemic broke out, the floor of the Nigerian Exchange Group hosted physical gathering for the closing gong ceremony to commemorate the listing of Guarantee Trust Holding Company PLC following the recent transformation of Guarantee Trust Bank PLC to a holding company structure. With this special event, GTCO received a lot of attention from investors, placing it as one of the top trades for the day. Almost 28 million units of its shares were traded for over 823 million naira. Its opening price was 29 naira 55 kobo, but it closed slightly lower at 0.34%. The Tier 1 financial institution and Wema Bank led the banking sector in the green, up 0.48%. Consumer goods was also up, while others were in the red, except for industrial goods,
which was unchanged. The all-share index ended flat, leaving the bear in charge again. And deals were lower compared to yesterday at about 3,500. Volume of shares traded was higher at over 197 million units, but value was lower, just about 1.9 billion naira. But it was still a positive breath in the market as 16 stocks gained and 12 declined. That's the stock market report. I'm Ini John Mekwa.
And that's business news. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. It's back to you, Millicent.
Thanks, Anne. At least 30 people have lost their lives during violent protests in South Africa ever since former President Jacob Zuma handed himself in to police last week. The police have arrested at least 800 people, and despite President Cyril Ramaphosa's address on Monday calling for calm, several townships in Johannesburg are still gripped with looting and destruction of property. Our crew visited some of the areas where these protests have held.
This is today in Diepkloof, Soweto, Johannesburg. The mayhem has spread, and a looter stampede in Meadowlands, also in Soweto, has boosted the fatalities by 11 today. 19 of the people who are dead are in Johannesburg, Gauteng. According to the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Sihle Zikalala, the number of fatalities recorded in his province stands at 26.
The latest fatalities confirmed by security cluster in KwaZulu-Natal is standing at 26. These were people that were killed during stampede as protesters ran riot.
This is what is left of the Diepkloof Mall here in Soweto.
The damage that is here is massive. Millions and millions of rents that it's not going to recover anytime soon. But we'll see as time goes on that how we're going to recover.
They are busy looting. So we don't know what's happening around South Africa. We want our country to cool down so that we come again and enjoy ourselves. Because if things goes like this, we're going to lose everything.
President Cyril Ramaphosa's passionate plea to the nation on Monday night appeared to have fallen on deaf ears, despite the announcement that soldiers will be deployed to support the police. After the president's speech and after several meetings, assessment meetings, the security cluster ministers addressed the nation.
The current situation on the ground is under strong surveillance, and we will ensure that it does not deteriorate any further.
While the security cluster was briefing on national TV, nothing much seemed to have changed on the streets. We returned here to the Alexandra Township, where the police has continued in their running battle with the people who have been looting. Formal and informal business groups, as well as the thousands who will join the unemployment market following this, are lamenting. No one knows whether tomorrow will be calmer or not. What's sure is that the road to recovering from this will be a long one. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Betty Dibia, Channels Television News. The death toll has risen to nearly 100 in a fire that engulfed a COVID isolation ward at a hospital in the Iraqi city of Nasiriyah. Police say the fire at the Al Hussein hospital started when sparks from faulty wiring spread to an oxygen tank, causing it to explode. Stammen Pusey has more in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Iraq's Prime Minister Mustafa al-Khatimi has ordered the arrest of the head of the hospital, where more than 60 people died in a fire. The cause of the fire at the hospital in the southern city of Nasiriyah is unclear, but reports said it began after an oxygen tank exploded. Health Ministry officials said that search operations at the hospital were continuing. More than 100 people have also been injured in the incident. Dozens of people have been arrested in Cuba after thousands took to the streets in a rare anti-government protest. The The demonstrations come as Cuba is experiencing its toughest phase yet of the coronavirus crisis, and the same day it reported a new daily record of infections and deaths. Those who took to the streets said they were angry about the collapse of the economy, food and medicine shortages, as well as price hikes and the government's handling of COVID-19. Unauthorized public gatherings are illegal in Cuba, and protests of this type are incredibly rare. Dozens of Democratic lawmakers have left Texas in an effort to prevent Republicans in the state from passing a law to tighten voting rules.
We are going to use that time.
The move will temporarily paralyze the state's House of Representatives, which requires at least 2/3 of the 150 members to be present for a vote. At least 50 House Democrats boarded 2 private jets from Austin to Washington, D.C. The bill in Texas would ban 24-hour polling places and expand the authority of partisan poll watchers. Republicans argue the measures are essential for election security. Firefighters are working in extreme heat to contain a number of wildfires raging across the U.S. West, with the largest burning in California and Oregon. The fires are spreading as extreme temperatures continue to hit the American West. The Beckworth complex, which is the largest wildfire of the year in California, has been raging along the Nevada state line and has burned about 140 square miles. Evacuation orders are in effect for more than 3,000 residents of remote areas of California and Nevada. Venezuelan prosecutors have charged a prominent opposition politician with terrorism and treason after the intelligence services arrested him. The Attorney General said that Freddy Guevara was detained by members of the Bolivian National Intelligence Service due to his links with extremist and paramilitary groups associated with the Colombian government. Guevara is a close ally of opposition leader Juan Guaido, who is recognized as the South American country's legitimate president by the United States and other Western powers. The UN Refugee Agency has warned that Afghanistan is on the brink of a humanitarian crisis. The agency said an estimated 270,000 Afghans had been newly displaced since January, bringing the total population forced from their homes to more than 3.5 million. Meanwhile, the US general leading the war in Afghanistan, Austin Miller, has relinquished command at a ceremony in the capital, Kabul, as a symbolic end to America's longest conflict. Google has been fined €500 million by France's antitrust watchdog for failing to negotiate in good faith with media companies over the use of their content under EU copyright rules. The US tech giant must within the next 2 months come up with proposals on how it would compensate news agencies and other publishers for the use of their news. If it does not do that, it would face an additional fine of up to €900,000 per day. The fine is the second biggest antitrust penalty in France for a single company. And finally, at a cafe in downtown Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, coffee and tea are served with whiskers and a purr. Customers can purchase lattes dusted with cat silhouettes and accompanied by paw-shaped biscuits, while cats lounge lazily in an adjacent room. In addition to offering some feline company, the cafe also functions as an adoption site for abandoned cats rescued by a local organisation. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. The second batch of the Nigerian contingent have left for Japan earlier today for the Tokyo Olympic Games. The second batch of athletes that departed the country through the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport in Abuja by Ethiopian Airline include some of the country's track and field athletes, the team's wrestling contingent, and their coaching crew. Roger Federer has withdrawn from the Tokyo Olympics after picking up a knee injury during the grass court season. Federer, who turns 40 next month, had 2 knee surgeries in 2020, which resulted in more than a year of rehabilitation. UEFA has charged the English FA over fan disturbances during England's Euro 2020 final loss to Italy. An investigation into events involving supporters which occurred inside and around the stadium will also be conducted after fans without tickets managed to force their way into Wembley Stadium on Sunday. And that's sports news.
And the main news again. The Senate today sealed the fate of presidential aide Loretta Onochies as INEC National Commissioner as lawmakers rejected her nomination by President Muhammadu Buhari. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Nwaka. Have a good night. Stay safe.